So welcome everybody. We are so glad you're here with us today. And this is our contact management power hour. Power hour meaning about an hour. It could go a little more, it could go a little less, and it depends on your questions and how fast we talk. So if you would need to leave, as Sally said, we are recording this and this will be available on our YouTube channel. So as most of you regulars know, I think I know everybody here. My name is Sarah. With me today, also presenting are Sally and Chris. And we do want to say before we get started, we are using a scrambled database. This is a training database, not real student data, not real contact data. The other thing is we want this to be interactive. We want you to ask questions. If there's something you don't understand, or if, as we're showing you something, you have some super duper tip to share with everybody, let us know. But please, we really, really like it when you're involved. So what we're going to talk about here this morning, or I'm sorry, this afternoon, when we talk about our contact management, we're briefly going to talk about how to create a contact, how to manage a contact, because those are things that you've been doing, but that's kind of a review. And then we also want to highlight some key areas that maybe you haven't spent as much time on. How do you do mass consolidate? How do you consolidate individually? How do you use the data access, the DAP builder, to make a list? What does contact cleanup mean? What is that? So those are the things that we'll be talking about this morning. So the first thing, though, that I want to talk about, and Chris is going to share his screen here in a second. Let me know, Chris, when you're sharing your screen.
I'm sharing now. I just wanted to make sure I picked the right screen. I've got a couple of monitors up and I didn't want to make things weird.
So. Okay. So what I would like to just go over quickly, and this is not anything new, it's something that we've all talked about, is meta documentation. So up on the navigation bar at the top, you're going to click on the question mark. And you are going to see links when you click on meta documentation. You're going to see the Meta YouTube content link, and you don't have to click on that, Chris, but that's where you would go to find this recording when you want to watch it again, the Meta YouTube content. And then in the search bar, we're just going to type the word contact and hit enter. And that's going to bring up all of the contact documents that we have in meta documentation. You can see there's one for contact cleanup. There are a couple for contact extensions customization. One is just the doc and one is the PDF. It's the same thing. We are not going to talk about contact extensions in this power hour. We just don't have time to go into that. If you want to know more about contact extensions, read the docs and check out what PowerSchool has to say about it. And then if you still have more questions, then put in a ticket and we would be really happy to help you with that. There's a mass consolidate doc, a PTP student contact slide. The QRC PowerSchool SIS working with student contacts document is PowerSchool's contact documentation. So information about adding contacts, maintaining contacts, would be a really good resource. And then we also have the student contacts DAT builder. Full documentation about that, but Chris will be going over kind of a brief summary of that and show you how to use that. So meta documentation, That's where you're going to find all your contact doc, doc, documents. Okay. So, but I said we're not going to do contact extensions, but what we will be doing, your basic contact management, contact cleanup, mass consolidation, and the DAP builder. So we have lots of good stuff to cover, kind of a short time to do it in. So I am going to turn this over to Chris at this time and let him talk.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and let's kick this off by just jumping right into that mixed up training environment. So today I'm going to start off. Let's talk a little bit about some overviews of some of the basic contact management, and let's start that off with contact searches. So within contacts, there's a couple ways that you can get to contact searches. Of course, you can click on people, come to contacts, and choose to search for contacts this way. But most of us are probably going to be just utilizing this drop down, which is going to get you to effectively the same place. You can come in here, just jump in to contacts. Again, once you're in contacts, you have the contact search bar, and you have a few different ways that you can navigate or not navigate, but implement searches within contacts. You can search by last name, first name, street address, emails, things like that. And we'll put it in for last name for this. One thing that is worth noting within contact searches, unlike student and staff searches, there's not that dynamic search functionality where as you type, it starts pulling things up. You can see here, nothing's populating until I either click this magnifying glass to search or press enter. In this case, we're at Apple Grove High School, and you can see now when I actually type that in, you get these 6 search results. In addition to being able to search just with typing in names, you can also utilize the global search up here. Interestingly enough, that is somewhat dynamic. So you can see we've got the 6 results here. If I were to come in up here and start typing in Adair, you can see as I go, it starts pulling that information in and again filters down once I've typed that full last name to those same 6 results that you're seeing here, plus a bonus student in case you weren't sure if it was a contact or a student. So nice little functionality in a couple of different ways you can just search by last name. You also have, of course, within the contact search page, options to search by first letter of the last name as a filter. You can also filter by contact status, whether that is an active or an inactive contact, or if the contact has a web access account or not. Another filter that oftentimes isn't noticed is kind of grayed out right now, you can see, so we can't utilize it in this exact moment, which is filtering by a student selection. In order for that to be functional, you would actually want to make sure you come into the student screen, maybe grab a selection of students, and then with that selection created, if you come back to contacts, now you have those 32 students selected, so you're able to utilize a filter that way. So if you pull that in, then you have just searching within these 32 students. We could type in Adair again and see what kind of results we get. Now, nothing came back in that case, but we could also come back in and just say, all right, let's turn that off. Let's search. Oh, you know why that didn't come back? My mistake. I was trying to do a compound search down here. If I remove first name, and we have, good learning opportunity there. Just make sure that you are utilizing the right functions here. If you type in Adair now and we search again, utilizing just those 32 selections, now instead of the original 6, we only have 4. So you can see that that filter is functioning. Further, you can even kick that in a little bit further. Now we have just those 4 with the last name Adair. Let's say, what if we throw in that they have an access account and we search again? We run that again, and now you've got it down to 2. Just the 2 with access accounts. So you can see how those search filters can come in pretty handy within some of the basic searching. Now, one of the filters that you don't see or that you can't utilize as easily, or you can't really utilize at all within contacts, just to be aware of, are things like comparators. Comparators are, if you go into students, if you've ever come over and click on this little question mark that you see pops up when you're searching under students, you can come down and you can see things like comparators like equals, does not equal, greater than, less than, some of those kind of functions that you can build in. You'll notice that within students, you have that question mark suggesting you could utilize those as a little guide. You also have that for staff. However, as soon as you move over to that contacts, that disappears because it's just not a function that's available, unfortunately. But at least you know what you do and don't have for some basic search functionality. So you know how to kind of perform some basic searches utilizing some of these functions and options within the search functionality. So what if you performed a search and you weren't able to find that contact? Well, in that case, you'd probably want to go ahead and create a contact. Now, of course, you would have the option of, again, clicking on people, go into contacts and saying, I want to go to a new contact. That's going to bring you right into a new contact screen that's going to allow you to start building. Most of us, however, are probably going to generally be within a student screen already trying to see if that contact is there. So in this situation, let's go ahead and pull up, let's go with, I like the alliteration. Let's go with Johnny Jones. So if we pull up Johnny Jones and we take a look at his contact management screen, you'll notice that Johnny doesn't actually have any contacts. So of course, in that case, you would want to go ahead and create a new contact. You could click the add button right here to add a new contact. One thing to note, I mentioned you could go contacts, new contact. If you click this add, there is one extra step involved, but it's a good one to have. You first get to search to see if contacts even exist, like if you already have that contact created and associated with another student. So for example, if we were to come in here and just start searching other people with Jones, we could search that and we could see there's 63 other Joneses. But as we went through this, maybe we didn't find that person. Maybe the contact we're wanting to create is for Jessica. So we run and we search for Jessica Jones. We say, sure enough, there is no Jessica Jones here for Johnny. Let's go ahead now and create that new contact. So now we've performed the search. We know we're not making a duplicate. We go ahead and click new contact. And once you get to this point, now you're in that same screen you would have gotten to by going into contacts, new contact. You're in the new contact screen. Now on the screen, technically to create the contact, the only thing you have to put in is a last name. We all know you're probably going to want to have a little bit more information in there. For our purposes, let's go ahead and make sure that we give her a first name. So we've got Jessica in here. And we really only need to worry for what we're going to be doing today about making sure she has an email address. So I'm also going to go ahead and come over to where you can see we have no email address. We're going to add an email. I'm going to say that email is their current email. And I'm going to go ahead and pull her email address in here. I already practiced a little bit beforehand, so I've typed it in. We'll save a couple minutes that way. And I'll go ahead and mark this that it is going to be that primary email address. So now we've got a name, we've got an email address. We'll go ahead and we'll click submit down here. And now you'll notice once you click submit, it tells you up here that the contacts have been created. And additionally, you can verify that by looking at the bottom. A unique contact ID was also created for that contact. So this is where if you're ever asked for a contact ID, that's a good, just pointing out that's where you can find that unique contact ID if you need to reference it. So we searched for contacts, couldn't find the contact, created a new contact, and the other advantage, if you started a new contact just from that contacts management screen, there wouldn't be a student associated, but because we created this contact from within that student screen, it's automatically already associated Johnny Jones to this contact. So what if that contact was a parent and they wanted to be able to look at Johnny's, grades and just see how he's doing generally within the parent portal? Well, they would need to have a web account. They need to have web account access in order to be able to do that. So they'd have to have a web account. Now, we highly recommend that when a parent has an account, that they create their own utilizing on the parent portal, create new account tab, the web access ID and web access password to be able to have the parent create their own account. And I'll show you where those can be located here in a little bit later. But for our purposes, you can also manually create a web access account if that's needed. Maybe you have a parent that's just not comfortable trying to navigate all that stuff. You can manually create an account for them. I'm going to walk you through the steps on how you can do that now. So to create that, the first thing you're going to want to do is, of course, look here at the web account access. There's nothing there. So we're going to click this button that says Add Account. When you click on the Add Account, you're probably going to want to have it active if you're making it. So you want to go ahead and create that active account. You want to create a username. If you manually create the account, The user is not going to have the option to change that username. So you're kind of giving that to them. So if you're doing this, you might want to have that conversation just to make sure it is something that they want. So you've got that, we've got a username here. You can also, you want to create a password. If you create a password, keep in mind the password you are creating is a temporary password for the user or for that contact. So once they sign in the first time to that parent portal, they are going to be prompted to set their own personalized password that'll be required to match the criteria that you've set at a district within password rules. So let's go ahead. For this purpose, though, we've got a real simple password that we've just started to create, and we want to go ahead and enter the account email address. Because we created that earlier, we can just click this drop down here and select that from the email addresses we already had existing for this contact. You could also type one in if you wanted. State Guardian is not something that you'll need, and this is something that would be utilized if there was single sign-on. Again, if you're manually creating it this way, you're probably not going to worry about that. But you're going to want to then go ahead and click Submit, and oh no, it didn't work. So one thing to keep in mind when you're creating these passwords, even though they are going to have to change them, it still has to meet some basic password criteria, being at least 8 characters long and not a well-known password. So something like password, probably not going to cut it. So we'll go ahead and put in something that is going to meet that minimum 8-character criteria, and go ahead and submit that. And all right, it didn't like that one either. So let's try throwing one other thing in here. There we go. Cool. So again, I tried something real simple still, probably still considered a well-known password, something like test1234 isn't going to cut it. So I had to throw a little something extra in there to just make sure that that was going to work as not being a well-known password. So now you have a web access account for this contact. You should be good to go, right? You've got the web access account. You've got, Johnny right here. So the students associated with this contact, everything should be said. The parent should be able to see things. Well, not quite. There's a little bit more to it than that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you something that may be good for you to know. I'm going to go ahead and pull up Johnny's contact, some information on Johnny himself over here in another tab. We're over here in the contact management. I'm going to jump over into on student screens, the Guardian and Student Account Access screen. 2 things I want to show you here, actually. One, that web account, web access ID and web access password I mentioned earlier, you can see those right here. So if you ever need to look at those are where you can go. Keep in mind, again, those are not the password for the parent to sign into their account. That is the ID and password for them to be able to create their own account and link Johnny to themselves. So other than that, the other thing I wanted to show you is here at the bottom, you see where it says parent access accounts, there's nothing listed. So that means Jessica is still not associated to Johnny's data as far as contacts goes. So let's see how we can associate that. If you come back into the contact details, you'll see I'm back here on Jessica as a contact up here in this that detail screen we've all seen 100 times. If you come down to the students section, you can see that Johnny is associated with Jessica, but data access has not been enabled for Johnny. To address that, you want to click on the Edit Pencil. And from there, you can see up here, this data access tab. Before I created that web account, data access tab would not show. You wouldn't even see it. But once they have a web account, now there's an option to determine if you want to enable student data and email functionalities for that contact. So you've turned that on. You can also see all of these other things. These are actually settings that can be set for that contacts can set themselves in their own managed profile to determine what kind of notifications and how often they get them. So you usually want to just leave that alone. Just make sure that they do have that link. And once you've submitted that, now you can see we've got Johnny, we've got the web account, and we have data access allowed for Johnny. If I were to come back in here and refresh, there's Jessica. Now you know everything is linked the way you'd want it. So you've been able to search for Jessica, couldn't find it, or at least search for a contact, couldn't find what you wanted. You decided to go ahead and create that contact, and you've been able to associate that contact with the student and link that student's grade data and other things to that contact so that the parent or the contact can look at that within their web account. So now you have all of that built. So now that you have those kinds of things built, maybe you want to take a look at students, and we were talking about utilizing the contact DAT builder, and maybe you want to create a custom list, a list that might say, let's have a scenario where maybe you're going to list students, but you want to list the students, include a student number, the student's name, and contacts, but specifically contacts that have custodial access. Um, to do that, let's go ahead and come back into main screen and let's utilize that student function or that student list. So let me go ahead and get a selection of students here just for our purposes. I'm just going to grab the A's and let's come over into that drop down that we have for student functions and select the custom student list. Now you can see here, did a little work ahead of time, thought I'd already cleared that out, sorry. So you can see here that as we mentioned in our scenario, we want to have the student number, the student's name, we've got first and last. And we also mentioned that we wanted to have a list of all of the contacts associated with each student. So in this scenario, I've gone ahead, I've built out those field names, which you can pull from fields. There is also this contact DATs tab, which you can utilize to create some simple DATs. That's not what we're going to want to focus on today. We're going to want to focus on the actual student contact DAT builder so we can get something a little bit more detailed. So the best way to get to the student contact DAT builder versus this more simplified contact DATs is honestly just to come up here in global search and put in, you can search for contact DAT builder. And there it is as we were searching with that dynamic search. I'm going to go ahead and open that in another tab so we can come back to this later once we've actually built the data access tag, that complex contact DAT that we can put in here. Let's jump over into the contact DAT builder. So the cool thing about this is it's a nice kind of step-by-step way to get through contacts. So let's take a look at, to build complex contact DAT. So let's walk through what we're going to do to build this. As we mentioned before, we want to build a list of students. We want to have contacts, but only contacts that have custody, regardless of their relationship to them. So what we need to give this DAT information on is who do we want, what do we want from them, and how do we want them to display. So let's walk through that. As we've mentioned, we don't care about relationship type. So here in the who, under relationship type, we're going to leave that blank. Doesn't matter. For flags, we mentioned we want custody. So let's specifically look at that custodial flag. We're selecting just that custodial flag this time. And we have max persons. How many returns do we want? By default, the builder only lists the first return. So you can set if you want more returns. In this case, we said we want all of the contacts with custody. So let's set that to all. And then the last option here in who, specific person, that's basically by priority. We don't really care about priority because again, we just want them all. So let's just leave that as blank as well. If we click next, now we start to get into what are the categories of data that we want? What kind of things do we want? We had mentioned that we wanted the contact's first name, we wanted the contact's last name, and we want to know what their relationship is to the student. So as we look through these, we have demographic information where you know first where names would be for contacts. We have student relationship, phone information, email information. You can also see address information and different kinds of like types for their contacts. In this case, we said we want to make sure that we have a student relationship listed. So we know their relationship. So we're going to go ahead and click on that option to turn that option on. And then we're going to select what within student relationships we're choosing. Again, we just said relationship, so we'll just check that. Then we also mentioned we wanted the contact's first and last name. Well, you have last first, which lists it, but what if we wanted first and last different? You'll notice if I enable the demographics, so it's going to show us stuff, as I click through things, it only selects one. However, I could say, I want their first name, and if I hit Control on a PC, I believe it's Command on a Mac, and then click, hold that Control or that Command button, and then click another option, you can see it lets me select multiple items. So I'm now saying I want the first name and the last name from demographics, and I want the relationship information linked to the student that's getting pulled. So now we've selected that information. Again, those are the only things in this case that we're really worried about right now. So we'll go ahead and move forward from there into the next section, which is formatting. How do you want this to display? So contact delimiter is, what is the delimiter? What separates each, what kind of character is existing between each contact being listed? Because we said we wanted all contacts. For our purposes, I'd like to see a line for each contact. So I'm going to choose HTML break in this case. You can also separate each item of the same type with a delimiter. You can separate values. And then for us, the other thing that I'm really worried about here is I want to make sure that that I put a comma between each piece of category data. So I'm going to set a comma as my delimiter there. There is another thing to be aware of. Up here on this blue screen, there's a notes section, and it mentions that with when you're using the Contact App Builder, if you're using it specifically for a quick export, if your delimiter is in formatting is set as anything other than a comma or a semicolon, the results will be unreadable. So this HTML break would be no bueno, no good if you were utilizing a quick export. But we're using a list, so it's going to be just fine for our needs today. So I'm going to go ahead and click next, and you think, cool, but there's nothing here. Just because you're at the screen, you're not done. You still need to build that contact. So we're going to go ahead and click build that. And now you can see we've got three different, pretty complex looking things. Here's one that you would need in the format if you're using a quick export, which we won't want to do. Right now, we're just doing list students. So we're going to go ahead and take this list students. I'm just going to click copy, and that's going to copy that for me. And now if I were to come back to that custom list, right here where I kind of created the title column, if I were to paste that in, and we list that contact at right there, now we could come on down to the bottom. I'm not too worried about making this super pretty, so we're not going to worry about these items. These are just some settings you could make if you wanted to put breaks between rows or pad the cells to have a little bit more space between things. But for our functions, this is going to be just fine. When I click submit, now you're going to see a nice list that gives you the student number, the first name and last name of the student, and finally, you've got contacts, first name, last name, and the relationship listed. Here's a nice, easy way to list all of those contacts. And again, these are only the contacts that have custody of that student. It's only pulling the contacts that have that custody flag checked. So that's a nice, simple way to be able to build the list. I hope that information is helpful for you and you'll find that useful. There was one other thing that I did forget to mention regarding contacts, and I should probably address that really quick. If we were to come back into contacts, let's say we determined that, that contact is no longer applicable. So maybe we want to go back into Jessica and we're saying, well, we don't really need her anymore. So we want to just, not have her showing up. It's important to note there is a delete button that exists. That having been said, no touching. We highly recommend that you don't use that delete option. Instead, deleting it if you have a transient population of students where they come and go a lot, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches if you don't delete the contact. Also, when you delete the contact, you're not just deleting it for that student, you're deleting that contact. So if they were linked to any other students where maybe they were important, now it's a problem. So let's come in here and instead of deleting it so that data is gone forever, let's just click inactivate. And that's going to make the contact so it's no longer active. They won't show on the student's list unless you click on the show all button. So if I were to come in here, I've made that contact inactivated. Let's go ahead and also, just for our purposes, edit an end date. And let's put today's date in, just so we can say we were done with this contact as of the 15th. Submit that and inactivate that contact. Now when I click submit, if we were to go back to Johnny and we were to take a look at his contact data, we would notice that within contact management, you can see right here's Jessica and she's not active. I think I had one that I hadn't. Oh, no, it just hasn't completely cleared it out yet. But at least it does show in here in italics. Maybe our test system's not playing quite nice for us, but it does actively put it in italics and also mention this is not an active account. So that's good information to just have available. And it's going to save you a lot of tears down the road versus deleting the account. So I hope that information was helpful. And I'm going to pass the baton over to my colleagues, Sally and Sarah, and they're going to give you some more information here regarding all this other wonderful stuff we're talking about today.
So can I add just one other thing on, and Chris is absolutely right. You don't want to delete your contacts, but what happens if you have three kids, maybe one of them, say a neighbor or something, and you still have kids there. You don't want to make the contact inactive, but you can put an end date on that neighbor kid who's no longer yours. So exactly. another way to handle it. But
Good point. Yeah, inactivate does inactivate it for everyone, but at least the information's not gone forever. So
right. So questions, any questions about, that's a lot of good information from Chris. Any questions about um, adding or inactivating contacts, managing contacts individually on that student, or the DAP builder? If not, then Sally.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Also in a train box with scrambled data, so no student information is being shared. What we want to talk about next in relationship to contacts is contact customizations that are available within the Meta Customizations catalog. So if we navigate to the catalog, and I'm going to go to Applications, Meta Catalog, and you'll see the catalog and the catalog categories. We're going to click the contacts category because that is what we're talking about today. Some of these customizations you will already have enabled within your environment, and they have been enabled for a while. A couple of them are more recent customizations, so we just want to highlight what's available for you to take a look at within your own environments to use as you see best fit. First, talking about consolidate contacts and mass consolidate contacts. PowerSchool allows duplicate contact records. We know that. It happens a few different ways. Within PowerSchool, if a user in your district manually enters a new contact, it could create a duplicate record. Maybe that contact was attached to an inactive student. Again, it happens with the manual entry. That can happen and cause a duplicate contact. Additionally, when parents or guardians are creating data access accounts, when they do that, it can also create a duplicate contact record. Additionally, a third-party registration program, when they're syncing with your PowerSchool environment, it could, again, create a contact record for someone who is already in your system. Those are just a few of the ways that it happens. We know that it happens. So these customizations consolidate contacts and mass consolidate contacts. This is a way to maintain your contact data and consolidate contacts. And we will take a look at this here in a little bit. We're going to actually walk through consolidating some contacts so you can see that. We just want to point out how duplicates can happen within your environments. The next customization is contact cleanup. With all of our customizations within the catalog, as you navigate here, again, we're certain you're very familiar with this. You click on the customization, it's going to give you a description and associated screenshots so you can see what you're looking, what the customization would do and what the page would look like. With contact cleanup, this is also something that we're going to be showing later in today's training session, so you'll get a feel for how contact cleanup works. But again, a description here, it's going to tell you that it's going to identify specific contact records giving different descriptions here. We'll walk through this, but we wanted to point it out that if this is not a customization you have enabled, we would recommend you enable this customization. We'll show you again how it works. But again, maintaining your contact data. Contact enhancements. So contact enhancements, it tells you here, it allows the display of multiple sets of contact information. I have another tab open here that I'm going to switch to and show you the contact enhancements. What it does is it allows for multiple phone numbers to be displayed, multiple email addresses. It's giving additional information onto your contact management page. Again, most of you probably have this customization enabled. We just want to point it out in case you do not. Contact student demographics. This is a newer customization recently that adds a demographic section. Again, I'm going to flip to my student example here. Brandon has his demographics information listed right here at the top of the contact management page. So not only are you looking at the student's contacts, you're also looking at the student demographic information. This is not editable. You can see this is just a display only section on this page. But again, it's for your reference as you're looking at contacts, maybe their addresses in relation to the student's address. Again, it's for your reference on that page. The meta contact extensions, we talked about this, Sarah mentioned it briefly earlier. You can see in our test box, we do not have this installed and we are not utilizing it. What the contact extensions, what it does, it will allow for extended fields. So your core PowerSchool fields and custom fields. PowerSchool has additional core contact fields that are not being displayed on the contact record. When you're looking at a contact record, you'll see, first, middle, last name. You see all of that information associated with the student. There are additional contact fields. Again, they're just not exposed on that record. Contact extensions would allow you to expose those core fields, and you could also add custom fields. If you were collecting parent information and you record that in a custom field, you could add that custom field to the contact record. Now, having said that, we will say we do not have this installed on our test box. We're not, and we don't have it enabled and using it because with meta contact extensions, if you were to use those, display those extended fields on the contact record, we would recommend that you do not consolidate contact records because, here is the caveat to this customization, because consolidating is not looking at those extended fields. So when you consolidate your contacts, all of the information is being consolidated, merged into one contact record. Those extended fields would not be merged, and the potential of losing that data, there would be a potential of losing that data. So at this time, we do not suggest and recommend to install and enable this customization. This is something that our development team is looking at and working on. It is not ready yet. So again, we wanted to explain what it is, but also give you our recommendation that if you are consolidating contacts, we would not suggest that you enable this customization. Okay, moving on to the next one, meta contact migration. All of our meta districts, your contacts have been migrated. So this is something that is used with districts who have not migrated. They are still using those legacy contact fields, the mother, father, guardian, emergency contact 1, 2, and 3. The migration customization helps migrating that. Mobile contacts. So mobile contacts customization, this is allowing users to access contact information on their mobile device. And again, when we're talking about the mobile device, we're talking about the mobile device accessing PowerSchool on a browser on your mobile device, not the PowerSchool app. But there is some setup. This came in handy. One of our districts had some admin users that were at an event over the weekend. So they were not in their office. They needed contact information. And so this customization allowed them, because they had set it up and they had admin access, they were able to pull up the contact information as needed. Our Ohio Community School relationship, so that's a customization allowing you to mass update community school contact code set relationships if you need to. And the last contact customization relationship note, this is another one that's fairly recent. It adds a little icon to the contact management page to display that a contact has a relationship note. So here on our example student, we can see on the far right hand side here in our actions column, we see these little text bubbles. This is the relationship note icon that will display again when a contact has a relationship note. If you click on the icon, it'll show you this is a relationship note. So whatever note that you need to put into a contact record, it will display accordingly. If you have, if we open another relationship note here on this record, we'll see number 2. So this relationship note was when a contact had added detail after previous detail has an end date. Okay, so that's a lot right there. So let me tell you what we're looking at. If we look at this contact record, if we open it up, click on the edit pencil, and we click on our All tab, we will see that this contact has 2 different detail records. So this contact was active and was able to pick a student up, was an emergency contact. They had a relationship note number 1. But this contact record was end dated as of April 1st. So sometimes maybe a contact record is end dated for purposes within your district. Maybe the contact has moved, temporarily moved, and so you want to end date it. We end dated it April 1st, and now the contact has come back and we have added detail. Another reason, maybe a phone number has changed. So you have added detail to update the phone number. Again, there's different reasons why districts use added detail. That would be specific to your district, how you're using it. But we just wanted to point out what happens with that relationship note when you have an end record and then you've added a new added detail. You can see now our relationship note for the current active record is being displayed on that relationship note. We also wanted to point out if there are relationship notes for a contact that has been end dated and has not been reinstated, you can click on your Show All checkmark box right here. When you click Show All, it shows all of those contacts associated to that student, including the contacts that are now inactive. And we can see when we see the inactive contacts, we also see their relationship notes. Okay. All right. So now we want to talk about, we mentioned we're going to talk about consolidating contacts. We're going to look at Mass Consolidate. So Mass Consolidate can be accessed through your People navigation menu. Click People, Contacts, Mass Consolidate Contacts. So again, we talked about how duplicate contacts, it happens in PowerSchool. Since we know that it happens, we want to be able to consolidate those records so that, again, your contact data is clean and maintained. When you come to Mass Consolidate Contacts, you will see that you are defaulted to a basic search. You will also see that you are defaulted to look through all of your contacts. When we talk about contacts, we're talking about active and inactive contacts. Sometimes contacts in and out of your district, right? They are out for a while and then maybe they come back a few years later, they've moved in or they have a new student to enroll. It happens. So when we talk about consolidating contacts, we recommend that you're consolidating all of your contacts, again, because it is maintaining your data. All the way at the bottom of the page, there is a legend that will tell you how these contact records are being grouped together as potential duplicates. Basic search is looking at your contact name and one or more of the following methods: an email address, phone number, street address and city, or an associated student in relationship. So any of these methods, one or more of these methods in addition to the contact name. With basic search, when it is looking at the name, it is looking at an exact match. The first and last name match exactly, no differences. you can see that the contact names are going to be listed, as well as numbered how many records were identified as potential duplicates. So for our first example of Kevin here, we can click on Kevin or the number 2. Either way will pop open this quick view for us to take a look at. We can see that Kevin, these records were combined because of a matching email. We can also see that the email has been highlighted in the example because there's a matching email in addition to the exact match of the name. It is identifying that these records are the same contact. It gives the contact record number ID here on the left-hand side. We can click on that to open in a new tab if we wanted to access that contact record on the fly and make any changes. You absolutely could do that. Again, with the basic search, it's looking at that name and any one or more of those identifying methods listed here to group those contacts together as duplicates. When you come to mass consolidate, you have the option to also search by specific letter. So if you're wanting to do a smaller group at a time, you certainly can do a letter group at a time. It will default to all of the records. So again, it's giving you some options of how you're looking at your page. You can click on the check mark box right here at the top to select all of your records to consolidate at one time. It will consolidate 500 contact record groupings in just under 4 minutes. Or you can individually click on contacts to consolidate as you would like. As you check mark them to consolidate, you'll notice your consolidate button up here at the top. It'll reflect how many records you're wanting to consolidate out of how many have been identified. You'll also notice there's a download preview. So if I just want to consolidate one record, I can click on my download preview. I have the option to then view that contact preview information. The preview is going to be exactly what our page looks like here. It gives us how many records, it gives the name, and how it was identified. This information here is populated once we consolidate. Again, this is just a preview, but you have that option to look at that if you do want to look at it before you consolidate. Again, you check mark the records that you want to consolidate, and you simply click consolidate, and it'll run through. It's going to show you it's calculating, and then it's going to run through the consolidation and its success. This contact was successfully consolidated. Now you can see our download option says download results. So now we can see that the records have been successfully consolidated, and we can have a record for our purposes. If we want to keep a record for our reference, we have that option as well. With mass consolidate, again, this is a basic, we're on basic search. We recommend districts come to mass consolidate on a regular basis. Depending on the size of your district, you may want to come to mass consolidate maybe once a month or every other week. Again, depending on the size of your district, how often you have students and contacts in and out of your environments. Again, this is a way to keep your information clean and up to date. So once you consolidate your contacts, they are clean and up to date as of this very minute. Tomorrow, when somebody enters a new contact or you have a new student, again, that duplicate could potentially be introduced into your environment. So make a note on your calendar to come to mass consolidate every so often to consolidate the accounts. Once you go through basic, you go through all of your consolidations, we suggest then that you go to advanced mass consolidate. With basic, we said that it was identifying the records based on an exact match of the contact name. Advanced search is looking what we call fuzzy logic. It is looking at those contact record names with that fuzzy logic in mind. So you can see it is looking at hyphenated names. It's looking at misspellings. It's looking at maybe common aliases. All of these are being factored in when you're using advanced search. So now it is looking a little bit more in detail at your contact records. Once you clean up your contact records with basic search, you can now use advanced search. With both basic and advanced mass consolidate, when you are using relationship types within your districts, you're using relationship types to identify guardian, parents, mother, father, aunt, uncle. When you're using those relationship types, it will not identify contact records as duplicates if they have different relationship types. We've seen situations where maybe a father named Robert and a grandfather named Bob live in the same home, so they have the same address, and maybe they have the same home phone number. You would not want those records to be identified as potential duplicates because they are, in fact, two different contacts. If your contact records have Robert specified as father and Bob specified as grandfather, they will not be identified as potential duplicates. It is looking at those relationship types. So we highly encourage the use of those relationship types with your contacts. So they will not then be displayed on your mass consolidate list. With consolidate contacts, data access counts. So we said when parents, guardians create those data access accounts, maybe the contact record within your PowerSchool environment has a contact listed as Kimberly, and the parent creates the account, the data access account, as Kim. That will create a new separate contact record. That Kim data access record will not have a relationship type associated to it. We do take that into account with our mass consolidate, looking at those situations where it is one contact record with a relationship type and a contact record that is a data access account record. So that is also being factored in with mass consolidate. I believe there was a chat earlier in the chat group here that I want to talk about. The question, I believe, was, let me go back to it. If we consolidate contacts for a parent with two different portal accounts, how will this be handled? This is a great question because sometimes parents create a data access account with one email address, and then they forget their login credentials. And they, sometimes click the forgot username and password, but we know sometimes those reset passwords go to their spam or their junk folders. So the parents, instead of going through the reset email, they create a whole nother data access account with a new email address. And because PowerSchool won't let them create a data access account to an email address that's already being used. So they use a totally separate email. So now you have a parent that has two data access accounts with two different emails. When you go to consolidate those contact records, mass consolidate, consolidation is going to look at the data access account that was accessed most recently. So the data access account that has the most current date that the parent logged in and was navigating through their student record, when that contact record is being consolidated, that is the data access account that will become part of the master record. I think that was the question that you were asking. If not, feel free to either you can unmute or put it back into the chat here. But that is a good question. Something that we did want to make sure that you know, as well as, again, oh, good, that did. Thank you for answering that. Yes, with those data access accounts, again, it does the contacts as they enter those data access accounts, it does create a duplicate. It does create those unique scenarios. So just something to keep in mind. Any questions with Mass Consolidate, basic or advanced search?
Sally, there is another one in
Yes.
the chat. For Mass Consolidate, is there a way to display junior and senior? Sometimes it's easy to confuse contacts without looking at this information.
Yes, so when you click on, again, either the number or the name, that quick info summary will have that junior senior information. I think, are you asking about displaying it here on the main page? That might be where I don't believe that it displays when you first navigate to that page, but that's something that we can certainly discuss about displaying as well.
And as Sally said, if you've used the relationship, they're not even going to show up on this list to consolidate. Relationship's going to say, no, these are not the same people, and they wouldn't be on your list.
But that is, yep, we'll add that. I see that in the chat. So we'll add that to discuss and follow up with you. Okay. Sarah, do you want me to keep moving as you talk, or do you want me to stop share and you share?
If you're already sharing, that's fine, whatever works. We're going to go to the students page right now. So from the start page, we're going to be on the students. So Sally talked about how duplicate contacts are made and how you should come to Mass Consolidate on a regular basis. But what do you do if you're just scrolling through and you see one and you just want to fix it? So 2 ways to manually do this to consolidate. We're going to start from the students page, and Sally, we're going to look for Luke Santos, Santos, and I am at Cherry Hill Middle School.
Okay. I'm in the district, but I have Luke pulled up here.
Okay.
You want me to switch to the middle school?
It's fine. I'm just trying to get you over here on my other screen here.
Okay.
I am still not seeing, I'm still seeing. Okay, so go back a screen if you would. Sorry.
Nope, you're good.
So here's Luke. She's found Luke. She's going to click on Luke. And then she is going to, over on under student profile, she would have looked for contact management, clicked on that to get to the screen. And you can see that he's got some duplicates. He's got Kristen as mother, and then he's got another Kristen as mother. I just, for information's sake, put in as the middle name the student ID or the contact ID. And if Sally clicks into that, you'll see, I know that Chris has already shown you where to see that ID at the bottom of the screen. That's the contact specific ID. So I just put these in here just for showing you this. You probably won't have those numbers in there. So so we have Kristen as mother and Kristen as mother. So right now we have 2. We could have, there's 2 fathers, whatever, but we're only going to look at Kristen. Sally's going to click over on select by hand over on the right, and she's going to check Kristen and Kristen. And then the auto consolidate contacts button highlights. So because we have that customization turned on. So she's going to click on auto consolidate contacts. It's going to say, okay, we're going to merge these 2 contacts. Even though it says we're going to delete that one contact and we're going to make this other one the primary. No, data is actually being lost. These two records are being merged into the one record, but it would be the 250781 record. So we're just going to say, okay. And so now we have taken care of that duplicate. If Sally clicks on Kristen, you can see all of her information and it's all there. We haven't really lost anything. So you can consolidate manually from a student's page. Another way that you can manually consolidate, we're going to go back to the start page and we are going to go to contacts. So Sally's going to drop down that menu to contacts and we are going to search for Sally. Do Jensen, Jenson, Cody. That's who I want to look for. And you'll have to scroll down some. What happened to Cody? Okay, well, we can't find Cody. We're going to look at Chase. Well, you're right there. Jensen's okay. Doesn't matter.
Okay. We'll go back to Jensen.
Yeah, and there were several Chases, so we'll just use Chase.
Okay.
Again, we are going to click on Select by Hand. The one thing I want you to pay attention to is when Sally clicked Select by Hand, it selected everybody here. So you want to uncheck that. And then just check Chase Jensen. He's got 3. If he had an Access account, it would show us that he had one. This one just happens to not. So we are selecting them. And then over on the little arrow, we are going to click on Auto Consolidate Contacts. The reason we're doing Auto Consolidate instead of just Consolidate, Auto Consolidate is the meta consolidation way. If you were not using a customization, you would not even see auto, you would just see consolidate. And in that one, you are choosing what is the primary. Our algorithm goes in and decides which one should be the primary. So we're just going to say, okay, we want to combine these 3.
And when it decides which record is to be the master record, it is picking the record that has the most data. It's not, you're not losing data, but the master record ID is going to be the record that has the most data, and the other record information is going to be consolidated into that one. So that's what it's.
And if he did have a data access account, that is the one that would be chosen as the master record, whichever one had the data access account. And so now Chase Jensen is just there one time. So 2 ways to auto consolidate, one from the students, one from the contacts page if you wanted to do it manually. Obviously, if you have a whole bunch of them, mass consolidate is the way to go. So with that, if you don't have any questions, I think that
we have
there is a
more
question.
item,
I see that. Yeah. We think people may be using relative as the relationship, so that can be something for us to correct on our end. Yes, you want to look at your relationship code sets, make sure that the relationships are the actual ones that you want. And that is kind of a training issue, how you train your secretaries. But if there are no other questions, then Sally's going to talk about something that not widely discussed. You may not even have seen it, or you may not have understood what it does, but it's really, really helpful. And we're going to talk about contact cleanup.
All right. And this is actually the perfect time of year to talk about contact cleanup as we are winding down the school year. Looking at end of year items that need to be reviewed and taken care of. Contact cleanup is something that we would recommend districts look at, again, especially this time of year. So we're going to navigate within people, contacts, contact cleanup. So contact cleanup, it is a customization, and what it's doing is it is identifying contact records with these given descriptions here. So it's identifying within our environment how many contacts have no name, how many contacts are not linked to any students, contacts that are designated as deceased, and contacts associated to a student but do not have detailed information. So it's a contact associated to a student, so maybe it has a contact name and it doesn't have any other detailed information. So no phone number, email address, any of those other details are not on those records. So again, it's giving you those descriptions and identifying how many records you have in your environment with those descriptions. It's going to default to show you all of your records. You can select to choose a letter group at a time if you would like to. Contact cleanup, it is doing exactly what it says. It's cleaning up your contact, but with this customization, it is going to delete contacts. So we said earlier, you don't want to delete contacts, you want to inactivate them. That's absolutely true. These contact records that we're talking about deleting are records that are no longer going to be used or were incorrectly entered. Again, different ways that those records can get added to your environment. A good one to look at is contacts not linked to any students. Some of our districts like to enter in PowerSchool volunteers that they have that come to their buildings on a regular basis. Those volunteers are just that. They're volunteers, but they're not contacts for any students. But again, the district wants to have them in PowerSchool. So some of our district, they enter those volunteers as contacts. They record that information. This is a way for them at the end of the year that they can clear out those volunteers that they have in their system. And then they each year get a list of volunteers that has to be renewed. That list has to be renewed every year. So again, this is a way to clean up your contact information. When you select any of these contacts to take a look at, when you check mark the box, you will now have an action. So we can display the contacts. So it's going to list those contacts listed down here. All of those contact IDs are listed here that we can click on. It'll open in a new tab. We can see the contact record. Again, we looked at contacts not associated to any students. So we see a contact name and their phone number, but they're not associated to any student. So again, this may be something that we do not want to roll over into our new school year. Maybe this is something that we want to clean up before we roll over. You can click on multiple items or multiple descriptions. So if we wanted to look at contacts with no names and contacts not linked to any student, again, you can check mark as many as you want to look at a time. These contacts with no name, again, you can open up the contact record to look at it. It does not have a name. So this is a contact that is associated to a student. They're active, but you can see there is no information, including a name. So again, within your district, this may be something that you want to clean up before you roll over into the new year. Once you look at these records, you can then delete them. Deleting them is a two-step process. So when you have your selection and you selected your action, delete contacts, it'll tell you right here your steps. Your first step is to create the file to delete the contacts. So when I click on that, you can see that it is going to download that file, that TXT file for me to then go to Data Import Manager. It's going to select our contacts table, and I can just click Browse to select that file that I just downloaded. That file, what it has in it, it has the delete command. So we're using Data Import Manager to delete those contacts with the delete option. So again, when we click on step 2, it takes us right here to Data Import Manager. We just choose our file and go through the steps for deletion. So again, contact cleanup is something that we suggest after you go through all of your consolidations. When you go through basic and then advanced consolidation, you would then see these numbers would start to decrease. If you look at your contact cleanup now and then you go through all your consolidations, you come back to contact cleanup, you'll see those numbers do change. So again, our recommendation, the order in which we would advise districts to go through this: mass consolidate basic, mass consolidate advanced, and then contact cleanup. Those would be, all of those methods would then again help you clean up your contact data, especially this time of year as you're preparing to roll over into the new year. Any questions with contact cleanup?
One thing to think about too. So Sally gave a lot of really good examples, but what if you had a contact not linked to any student, for instance, doctor's office, dentist's office. He's got multiple students, but you wanted him in there, but you didn't really want to connect him to kids. Once you download that file, you can go to that file and take out that contact. So when you import the new one in to delete it, he's not even in there. So you do have some control over one is exported and then what's imported. You have some control in there.
Absolutely. That's a good point.
I'd be interested in hearing in the chat how many of you have actually used contact cleanup or even looked at it. So, you know, if you just want to just put a message in the chat to tell us that. Okay, Michelle. Yeah, okay, Barb. And I think, Christy, don't feel bad. I think a lot of people have not used contact cleanup.
Awesome.
Okay,
it
is
good. It is a little bit newer. So yeah, so we're trying to get the get the word out of how to use it, what you're looking at. Again, encourage you to look at the data and clean it up.
So always to make your data cleaner, and that's very important. Anything that we didn't go over or you have a question and we're done with our recording, you can always put a ticket in and say, oh, wait, I have a question, and we'd be happy to answer that for you. Okay.
All right.